The men's ice hockey team beat North Dakota, the now number 7 team in the country. The women's soccer team had their first loss of season in MAAC play versus Iona, and the women's volleyball team is on a 2-game winning streak. All this and more on Bobcat Breakdown, starting right now. Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. I'm your host, Michael Hanley. Alongside me are men's ice hockey beat reporters Matt Mugno and Aiden Barrett. Guys, are you ready to get to work tonight?
Listen, Mike, I woke up Chris Breezy. Oh my gosh, I'm the man. It is Freaky Tuesday after all because it's Bobcat Breakdown tonight.
I'm ready to get going.
All right, well, remember to show some mercy. Let's hit the ice. Now, this past weekend, the men's ice hockey team went to North Dakota to face off against the former number 3 team in the country, the North Dakota Fighting Hawks, with a series that ended with a win for the Bobcats 6-2. Aiden, what letter grade would you give the Bobcats for their performance?
I gave them an A-. I mean, obviously the weekend prior they played LIU. They probably expected to beat by, a little bit. They wound up tying that game 2-2. So they go into North Dakota, ranked 3rd in the country. Obviously they have a pretty good program there themselves. They obviously met a few years back, or a little bit more than a few years back at this point in the national championship game. You're obviously going to get a good game out of this team. They met twice last year as well. Looked pretty good, too, to start the game. Pretty encouraging. Quick 3-0 lead. Took a 4-1 lead at one point. But then, it kind of was, they got outshot 43-22. They lost that game. Actually, no, they tied that game 5-5. They wound up winning the next game by a score of 6-2. They looked much better. Shots were 21-21. But Yannis Peretz was really good in game 1. He didn't have to be as good in game 2. They kind of got a little bit, not to say lucky, but North Dakota's goaltending wasn't really that good in game 1. They were much better in game 2. And, Quinnipiac was able to capitalize on those chances. So I give them an A- because you don't love, a 4-1 lead to kind of slip away from you. You obviously are happy that you won a game and tied a game. There are definitely some things that you like, though. DeYoung, he took another step in the right direction. 3 goals, 3 assists. Friedman continues his strong year, 2 goals, 2 assists. And Zach Metza, you look back to last year's team, they lost 3 defensemen this year. He's had to be good or really good for them. He's been really good. And Jacob Quillen's another guy who's developed pretty well. So, all in all, A-.
Yeah, Aiden, honestly, I went with a B. I didn't want to go with the plus-minus system. But at the end of the day, they still blew the lead, the 4-1 lead, which I think I'm personally in the camp that believes no matter how you win a game is how you should win a game. But considering it's still early in the season, this is something we've seen a little more consistently throughout the program's history in recent years in tournament play. And even against LIU, they had a 2-0 lead. Now, LIU played really well, but that was just the week before, and they blew another lead in this game, in the first game of this weekend as well on Friday. So I do think that does take away, even though there were 11 goals scored and 9 different Bobcats, 11 goals scored and 9 different Bobcats scored. So I think it's really good that the offense, they really exploded on offense. I think it's as close to a perfect weekend as you could have, but that blown lead is something that I think is a consistent issue that's come up and needs to be addressed.
Would you have called it an A weekend, though, if you said going into that weekend that they would tie and win a game by 4 goals after losing to LIU?
I would agree with that. With that.
So we can kind of agree on an A-, because it's right in the middle of an A and an
A. I would say it's in the middle. It's not perfect, but it's...
So you'd say it's an A weekend?
I think it's as close... I wouldn't say A.
You just said it 2 seconds ago.
You said A-.
No, I said an A weekend. Would you call it an A weekend?
Well,
and you said B, so right in the middle is an A-.
And what do you think?
We agree on an A-.
All right, I guess you guys are on the same level, but anyway, it's time to take a look at Matt's top 5 teams in the country where he thinks and where they think they rank. So let's take a look.
I'm Matthew Mugno, and here's my top 5 college hockey programs coming into week 2 of action. Cue it up, Connor. All right, who do we have as our honorable mention? Michigan, sleeper number 1. 17 skaters have points for them. And for Denver, the number 5, well, let's not lose sight of the promising victories they had in week 1 against Notre Dame and Maine. They take the Friars on Freaky Friday. All right, number 4, who else? The UMass Minutemen. Like Washington on the Hudson, they wouldn't go down. 19 block shots. Their goaltender, Luke Pavicic, earned Big East Player of the Week. In net as the first goaltender in program history to record a shutout against the top team in the nation. He recorded a .973 save percentage, stopping 73-75 shots. All right, number 3, the Quinnipiac Bobcats, Who else? Explosion on offense. 11 goals and 9 different goal scorers. Wow, that's crazy, honestly. I think that the Bobcats showing this is one of the first times in program history we've seen their offensive prowess really take over a series against the number 3 team in the nation. Ethan DeYoung, ECAC Forward of the Week. Number 2, what are we talking? Minnesota State. We're talking Minnesota hockey. They owned ranked Minnesota Duluth last weekend. Keenan Ronsier filling the big skates of Dryden McKay, who won the Hobie Baker last season. They had a shutout and a close 2-1 victory this weekend, and they also split against Minnesota in week 1. And who's number 1? Who else? The state of hockey, Minnesota. Listen, NHL talent assets can only get you so far sometimes in college hockey. It's all about the culture. But listen, it's working for them. Led by Logan Cooley, the number 3 pick for the Arizona Coyotes. Ryan Johnson, 31st overall from the Buffalo Sabres. Jimmy Snuggerud, 23rd overall for the St. Louis Blues, who had a hat trick in week 1. And Brock Faber, the Minnesota Wild's return for Kevin Fiala, one of the best offensive talents in the NHL right now. Leads the D with 3 points. They didn't play last weekend, but they'll take on ND, who fell out of the ranking this weekend. Thanks for watching, guys.
All right, now, Aiden, tell me, what do you think about Mugno's top 5?
Well, honestly, Mike, when the polls came out, I saw them, and honestly, I was saying beforehand, Quinnipiac, they just tied LIU, so they moved back to 8 at 6 before. They go over to number 3. I thought that was a little much. I thought they'd stay at 6. So Matt actually agrees with them at number 3. My question to you, Matt, is obviously they start off Denver's number 1, correct? Okay, so Denver loses to the current number 6 team in the nation, to UMass. Quinnipiac tied LIU. They tied North Dakota. They wound up beating North Dakota in 1 game. Why are they ahead?
Why are the Bobcats ahead?
Yeah.
Well, Denver got smoked by the Minutemen.
Smoked. What was the score?
The scores?
Yeah.
Well, they got shut out in 1 game, and they played one of the best goaltenders of the week. So I do think that they played a brick wall in Pavicic, but I also think for the Minutemen, but the Minutemen came to play, and they were out of the top 10 in the ranking the week before. So I do think that Denver. They're still in the top 5. Like, I don't think this weekend alone should signify that big of a jump.
Played a brick wall, but didn't Quinnipiac also have a brick wall on that? So wouldn't that kind of,
They did, but he also surrendered 4 goals in a row. And they also surrendered on the power play a few times. So, and your goaltender is supposed to be your best penalty killer. So I do think in game 1, the Bobcats struggled to keep the puck out of their net. Now, granted, that was the same for North Dakota as well. But I do think that goaltending came into play.
All right. We got some tense motions here. But let's move on here. So let's talk next about what has Quinnipiac gone from being ranked 8th to 3rd in the country. Matt, do you think the team really deserves this rank?
I do. I think it's early on, and I think with these rankings that are coming out earlier on in the season. Now, granted, it's October, and when we're down the road in February, you may look and say like, well, yeah, when it's October, you could look back and say, well, if we won that series, maybe we'd be in better position for tournament play or whatever, the NCAA tournament. But at the end of the day, I think the Bobcats showed that they have the offensive talent as well, and they had a really spread offense. So I do think that it was a really promising showing despite the blown goal lead. Now, granted, we've looked at that in more ways than one, but I do think that the Bobcats are the number 3 team in the nation.
Honestly, it was a really impressive weekend, obviously. I mean, you go into a team, it's hard to win on the road in college hockey. You go into a team ranked 3rd in the nation, and obviously, we said North Dakota is a proven program. They're good year after year after year. So is Quinnipiac. But to kind of put them, 5 spots after a weekend earlier, tying LIU, I know I keep going back to the LIU game, and you could come back and say to me, they just beat North Dakota. But, I see Denver.
The number 3 ranked team last week, though.
Yes, and I don't understand why, Denver moves back as much. Michigan just beat BU 9-2. They don't move up. They actually move behind Quinnipiac. That just doesn't make sense to me. It's not so much Quinnipiac's play. I just think that if these were your rankings before the weekend started, how do they change this much off 2 games of each team? I just don't.
I think because it's early in the season.
Moving.
I think it's just because it's early in the season. And granted, I do want to preface as well that I even texted our producer Connor Core that the rankings I put in were not based on the NCAA rankings. I didn't pull them off the website. Like, these were what I personally thought after this weekend. So I do think the Bobcats should have moved up significantly.
I agree moving up. I just feel like 3 is a little bit much.
Well, think about North Dakota in the national ranking moved down.
Can we just compromise and say they should be at 6?
It's math.
I got to agree with Aiden. But all right, so let's move on to the other locker room. The women's ice hockey team has won their first 7 games for the past 2 years. Is this hot start due to their is this hot start in their season due to an easier schedule or what? Let's start with you.
Yeah, so I looked through the last few seasons, Aiden. I don't know how you feel. I do think that the earlier start of the seasons have been pretty easy in terms of the difficulty of their schedule. We look in 2019-20, the record 4-2-1, and they didn't play any ranked teams. 2020-2021, they played SHU 2 times, unranked. LIU, unranked. Colgate, ranked number 5. LIU 2 games again, unranked. They went 5-2. They lost to Colgate the 2 games. So the only ranked team they played, they lost twice. 2021-2022, Maine 2 games, unranked. LIU 2 games, unranked. St. Anselm 2 games, unranked. Record 7-0. And this season, Maine number 12. BC number 14, New Hampshire number 32, and St. Anselm number 30, 7-0. So, I mean, you tell me, were there any ranked teams in there? Yes, and the one season that they played a ranked team, they could have been 5-0, but they went 5-2 because they lost to Colgate. So, Aiden, what do you think?
You know, honestly, I kind of disagree with you because, you know, going into a game, you said no ranked teams, correct? Okay, so if you're going into a game, you're playing a non-ranked team, you should beat them by a lot, right? Okay, the past 2 years in the first 7 games of the season, they've had a plus 25 goal differential in both games. So they win their games. They win them pretty handily. They do what they're supposed to do. Now, I'll go into the rest of the season. Last year, they finished 29-10-2, I believe. I don't know if I have the overtime losses right. But that's still 19-10 over the final 29 games. I mean, they're still winning their games, and they're winning the games that they're supposed to do. They can't say, okay, you know what, we want to play these games or these teams in the first 7 games. They're going to play the teams that they're going to play in the first 7 games that they're put out there. And you know what they do? They go out and they win the games pretty big. They do what they're supposed to do, and when they play those harder teams, they do okay.
Are you a college football fan?
I'm sorry, what?
Are you a college football fan?
Not really.
Do you know, like, they schedule the games against smaller schools and schools that aren't ranked as high
Yes,
so that
college
they can
football, yes.
accumulate some wins and momentum, which I do understand, but 7 of those games?
No, I understand what you're saying, but the first 7 games, do they actually decide, like, you know, the day of the schedule? Do we know that for college hockey? Do they do that?
I'm not positive.
I don't think they do.
I don't think so.
So, okay, so
But then again,
coming in,
we just talked about New Hampshire. They're number 32.
Number 32.
You didn't know
They won.
scheduling.
They won by a lot.
Against New Hampshire.
They won the game.
Yes, Quinnipiac won the game.
Yes.
So I'm stating that when you're playing that opponent,
But how can you say they're not going to win
that
the game?
opponent, though,
They win the
when
game.
You're
I don't
that
get it.
opponent, you
All right,
know that they haven't been in the top 10.
29 wins.
You know they haven't been in the top 10 in how many years?
They're still a good team.
All right,
They're dominating the
okay.
game. If they win,
This is becoming concerning. All right, okay, we're going to move on to the next question. Despite the women's and men's seasons both starting off well, is it all smoke and mirrors? Yeah, consider each of the team's history, and they just keep on coming up short. Do you think this is just another just blah year?
No.
No?
No, because, I mean,
Aiden.
because you're getting
me
what
that.
you expected. You expected, Matt, you just said they played unranked teams, correct? They played unranked teams. Okay.
How about when it
they're
comes to the big
7-0. They're 7-0.
How about when it comes to the big games?
It's not, you know, with LIU. I mean, look, they lost or they tied LIU, but they still won against North Dakota. They still go into the playoffs, and you know, Quinnipiac, obviously they met a team in Michigan that I think we and you both agree is a very, very good team, and probably the best team in college hockey last year. I think me and you both agree about that.
Yes.
The women's team went against Ohio State. They took up a double overtime. They're still players. It's hard to win a national championship. There's a reason why it's a national championship. It's hard to win. It doesn't mean that just because you don't win it doesn't mean that you're a bad team. They went to the Frozen Four. Quinnipiac was, a goal away from the Frozen Four. Not a goal away, but at one point when they pulled the goalie, they kind of really were a goal away. But, I mean, they're in it, and they're in it with the best teams. Just sometimes, it's a one game, and they lose the game. But obviously, Quinnipiac, I mean, they look good right now on both sides of the ice, the men's and the women. I still expect them to be players. They're players every single year. They'll be players again this year.
Okay, well, I think it's all smoke and mirrors. Honestly, I'm starting to lose vision in here. Top program in the nation continuously, but guess what, Aiden? You know what Kobe said? Banners hang forever, my G. I'm going to go with the classic mantra, all that matters is winning. All that matters is winning. We will at 2019, 2020, 2021. They win the Cleary Cup. They've won 4 of the last 7 seasons, the regular season, in the MAAC conference, in the ECAC. My apologies.
You're good.
Need to take a second. Oh,
Yeah,
Aiden's
okay.
getting fired up.
You're relaxed. You're
2019, they lose to Brown in the MAAC quarterfinal. Lose regional final in Minnesota Duluth in the NCAA. 2021, lost championship to St. Lawrence 3-2. Final game in OT. Blew 3-goal lead to Minnesota State in the regional semifinal. 2022, lost to Harvard in championship. And the second game in overtime, lost regional final to Michigan. Michigan was the best team, yes. But if you're a top program in the nation, at some point you think in one of these seasons they would at least make it all the way.
Okay, those happened in the championship game, and
But they
Elite
didn't
Eight.
close it out.
But we never
Wait,
closed
the
it
championship
out.
game,
We never
the
closed it
Elite
out.
Eight.
For both
Banners to
programs.
last
I didn't
forever.
even touch upon the women's program.
Do we have time?
No, we don't. All right, let's. Great points, gentlemen. A lot of jumping sports so far, but let's take our first break. We have plenty of women's and men's soccer coming up, and volleyball, so don't go anywhere. See you soon.
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made home ownership happen. Homeschooling yourself on loans, beefing up your credit score.
So I'm pre-approved.
You were like, yes! Sorry. Color coding listings, ticking boxes, and flushing every toilet in a 20-mile radius. Home sweet home. You aced house hunting. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
Honey, what I think you need is a socket wrench.
I played JV basketball.
I'm sorry. I don't think it looks right.
This is good, and it's all
Is
good,
it,
baby.
Is it really all good?
If you love me enough to routinely test your handyman skills, not to mention the strength of your marriage, then of course you'll visit nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat to make sure I'm in the right car seat.
I'm gonna call my dad.
Meet the scan, a simple procedure whose mission is to detect lung cancer early.
I'm here to save you.
But I feel fine.
That's great, but you may still be at high risk for lung cancer.
Oh man, that's a new fence.
If you smoke, early detection could save your life. Learn more at savedbythescan.org.
I think it's just vapor with flavor.
It won't hurt my kid like cigarettes, right?
Vaping is safer than smoking, isn't it?
There's really not even that much nicotine in them, right?
My kid?
My kid knows it's dangerous.
Get your head out of the cloud. Today, nearly 8,000 kids will start vaping, maybe even yours. Learn about the dangers at talkaboutvaping.org.
Welcome back. Let's jump right back into the action here. Let's dial the clocks back to a few weeks ago when Connor Court was on desk talking about the women's midfield issues. Okay. Let me just get the quote up real quick. There we go. The non-existent midfield that the Quinnipiac Bobcats have had thus far this season has been abysmal and can lead to bigger problems heading down later into the playoffs. So, do you think that these non-existent midfield issues are the main cause for their first loss in the MAAC against Iona? Matt, what do you think?
It's a 1-0 loss, and I think that sometimes when a system works so well for you and it's working well for you, at some point an opponent's going to pick it apart, right? And it can be used against you. And that's exactly what I think happened. I mean, we talk about statistics, we talk about the shots on goal, and it was tied 3-3, 10-7 shots in Quinnipiac's favor, saves 2-3 in the Iona Gale's favor, and fouls 11-12 Quinnipiac. So I think if you look at some of the major stat categories, they're tied, and it came down to one goal game. And I do think in the system play, the statistics can't show you that the midfield was not present, but the midfield wasn't present throughout the game.
You know, Matt, I agree with you, honestly. But I look at this team, and I don't know if I'm really going to pick a certain position. I think I'm just going to pick the team in general. Look, they've scored 38 goals this season. Rebecca Cook has 18 of those 38 goals. I think they just need more scoring, balance scoring, whether it comes from midfield or wherever it comes from on the field. They need more scoring. I mean, obviously, they're getting the goaltending. They're not allowing a ton of shots. They're not allowing a ton of high-danger chances. They need goal scoring from outside of Rebecca Cook. If whoever steps up, the second person on the team has 5 goals. If just somebody can step up and give a little bit, more goal scoring, just to kind of give the defense another person to key in on. Because obviously, Matt, you just said, when you put a game plan together and you just keep doing it and doing it, teams are going to eventually pick it apart. They realize Rebecca Cook is the player to look for. She has 18 goals this year of the 38. They're going to need somebody else to step up to kind of just even take pressure off or score themselves, whichever one works. I mean, obviously, if the ball goes in the back of the net, you win. And obviously, Quinnipiac has 10 wins this season. It's worked to this point, but as we said, in the playoffs, when teams really get to dissect these other teams and dissect Quinnipiac, they're going to see Rebecca Cook. We need more goal scoring on the other parts of this team, or you know what, like Matt kind of said, it's going to be tough.
Honestly, you're right. I mean, one person can't score all the goals.
Listen, she is her, though, by the way. Rebecca Cook is her. Just want to state that.
Yeah, okay. Now on to the men's team. After facing the top 3 teams from the MAAC polls during the preseason and tying Iona, how do you think they'll do against Manhattan? The top-ranked team. Aiden, what do you think?
You know, this is something I'm going to go off history, you know, because that's the most reliable thing here. I've seen that they can stick with almost pretty much every team in the MAAC. Look, 3-2 win to Fairfield and Marist. Took care of Ryder pretty handedly, 3-0. Tied Iona 1-1 and lost to Siena 2-1. Look, they obviously can stick with teams in the MAAC. Manhattan should be no different. I'll go back to history again because I started with history. They're 9-2-1 all time versus Manhattan. They're 8-1-1 in their last 10. They won 4-1 last year in their meeting with Manhattan. You know, Quinnipiac sits at 3-1-1. They're 4th in the MAAC. Manhattan is 4-1-1. They realize how big this game is, how that they can still catch Manhattan. This is a big game for Quinnipiac. If Quinnipiac wants to be real contenders in this thing and show that they're real contenders, they'll be ready to play this game. I expect them to be ready to play this game because so far, what history showed me, they're going to be ready, and they should win. So.
Well, I mean, history last season did not tell you that, but I do think that they are 1 win away from last season's wins total in conference play. They're 1 win away from 4 wins, which would tie last season when they went 4-6 in conference play. And in program history, as you mentioned, with playing Manhattan, the Bobcats are 9-2-1. So if we're talking about the history between the two teams, 9-2-1, I mean, if you're going to hedge your bets, I mean, plus a million on that. And I think that if they have their number historically and you play it this well without Brog Austin, like, for this long, they found ways to move around, not having their key striker from last season, and I think that's actually what's led to the team's successes heading further into conference play.
Players stepping up.
All right, well, let's move over to the court. How do you guys think the volleyball team will do in the last 4 games? Do you think they'll mess it up, or do you think they'll win? Matt, what are your thoughts?
I think it's more about getting hot at the right time, because every team makes the playoffs in the MAAC. So progress is progress. 3 of 4 is good in comparison to the previous wins they had. And I think that if you look at professional sports, now granted it's not the college scheme, the college realm of things, but the Phillies in the NLCS this year, they went 38-32 in the second half of 2022. They're now playing the Padres in the NLCS. The St. Louis Blues, right? Aiden, I know this is a comparison. You get 30-10-5 in the second half of the 2018-19 NHL season, and they win the Stanley Cup. So I do think that it's about getting hot at the right times. And I think that's a mantra that comes up a lot in sports, but because all the teams make the playoffs, they could start winning or at least getting things together, and when they enter tournament play, they could do really well. So I do think it really is about getting steamy at the right time.
You know, you talked about getting hot at the right time. Last year, we kind of saw the same thing, a really bad start for the volleyball team, and then got better as it went on. You know, they won 3 of their past 4 games, as we just said, but it's kind of what they expected. You know, St. Peter's is 0-23. Manhattan is 1-19. Ryder is 5-15. They lost to the team that went 9-11. That's the team that they're going to play next as well. I mean, I don't think it's enough. Unfortunately, good run for 3 of their past 4 wins to get into the playoffs. Maybe something can happen, but, you know, kind of saw us last year, and I don't think they're super contenders yet. All
right, let's hope they turn up the heat, but it's time to take our final break of the night. Don't go anywhere because we have plenty to talk about, including the QBSN Player of the Week, and of course we have Final Roars. We will be right back.
When we adopt a shelter pet, we discover they're a unique mix of all kinds of things.
Come on, Jules, spot on this last one. There it is. Keep going with it. Leo!
They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love.
I know what you're thinking.
I need a job.
I need a new career.
Well, I've been there.
I've been there.
I've been there. I wasn't happy with what I was doing.
After high school, I didn't have a plan.
I just wanted to start working.
I got laid off twice, but you gotta keep
You
going.
just need the right skills. Find an apprenticeship.
I found a 2-year IT program.
I found a medical course online.
I'm now a consultant in the tech space.
You have more options than you think. You can do this.
You will find something.
You will find something new.
I don't think that many kids in my son's school even do it.
He makes fun of his friend who vapes.
He would never try it.
She's into soccer.
She's on the honor roll.
She's just not the type.
No way.
No way.
No way.
No way, my kid would never vape.
Get your head out of the cloud. Today, nearly 8,000 kids will start vaping, maybe even yours. Learn about the dangers at talkaboutvaping.org.
Type 2 diabetes can have a big impact on your life, but how can it be prevented? Well, the first step is knowing if you have prediabetes, a serious medical condition that puts you at high risk for type 2 diabetes. 1 in 3 American adults has prediabetes, but more than 80% don't know they have it. The good news is, prediabetes can be reversed, and for many people, healthy changes in their daily routine can make a big difference. Take the 1-minute risk test today at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Welcome back. It's time to incorporate something new. Let's take a look at the QBSN Player of the Week, Lexi Adiza. Lexi recorded her 100th goal last Saturday in the Bobcats' last game against Cornell. The captain and graduate student has played in every game since starting her college career in hockey as a first year back in 2018. Since then, she's been a powerhouse for the team, leading the team in points since 2019 and being the lead scorer during her last season with the Bobcats. Her senior season turned heads after notching a +29 on ice ranking, finishing the year ranked 4th in the nation for faceoffs and receiving the Mandy Schwartz Student Athlete of the Year award. The team has started off with a solid record of 7-0, with Adiza already bringing 8 points to the table. Hopefully, we see more points and great plays from her in the near future. All right, it's time for everyone's favorite part of the night, Final Roars. Aiden, let's start with you.
Last season, the Quinnipiac women's ice hockey team went all the way to the Elite Eight and were a goal away from the Frozen Four. Through 7 games, they have shown much of the same. No, literally. The team is 7-0 with a 25-plus goal differential, the same numbers they had last year at the 7-game mark. Team leaders like Olivia Mobley, Lexi Agia, Kendall Cooper, and Sadie Peart have all picked up at the same spot they did last season. They had success with it last year. Can't be a bad thing if the same is happening this year. The difference was last year they were led by Corrine Schroeder in net, a goaltender who we saw post a .951 save percentage and have put a goose egg on the board for the other team in 6 of her 15 wins and 25 starts last season. A question mark coming into the season of how could the Bobcats goaltending be has been answered by a tandem of Katie Boudier and Logan Andrews. Andrews currently holds a .921 while Boudier has a .981. Both of them have recorded a shutout in the early season. Boudier too, actually. With the key pieces still finding the back of the net for the Bobcats and pieces on the other side of the red line not finding the back of the net, I feel confident with saying Quinnipiac will be a player in the tournament yet again.
The skating Bobcats rose from number 7 and 8 to number 3 this week in the NCAA and USCHO men's hockey poll ranking. Among the remarkable team efforts on the previous Friday-Saturday, one asset was lauded for his efforts. Ethan DeYoung secured ECAC Forward of the Week recognition, posting 3 points this weekend, countering the North Dakota Fighting Hawks. The victory in the Wild Wild West bore witness to 9 different Bobcats finding twine. The assistant captain in the mix of cavalry, leading on paper with 2 goals and an assist, seizing the moment to stack the lead in the tiebreak contest. DeYoung is evolving into a top forward in the nation. The senior stands as the leader in tucks in the ECAC, and his 110 career points remains second amongst all active NCAA Division I hockey players. As the foliage dies off and the rink comes to life, DeYoung is becoming the heartbeat, the metronome, the pacemaker for the Bobcats Blitzkrieg. The Bobcats march onward against the University of Maine for a Friday-Saturday slate. I'll be reporting on the 2-game set. Matt Mugno, I won't say it twice, and Aiden Barrett for that fact.
Well, again, let's talk about men's hockey. The men's hockey team had an undefeated weekend from 8th to 3rd in the MAAC rankings with help from graduate student and the ECAC's Forward of the Week, Ethan DeJong. After this weekend's winning run, he leads the league in goals and is ranked 16th in the nation for goals per game. He is also 14th in the nation nationally and 3rd in the ECAC for points per appearance. Since attending the Carolina Hurricanes development camp during his first year in 2018, DeJong was named to the ECAC Hockey All-Academic Team, picked up for the team his senior semester, and has been leading the team ever since, racking up points and playing every game since 2019. He currently leads the team in points with 3 goals and 3 assists. Quinnipiac returns again to the ice next weekend when they face off against Maine. So that's all we have for tonight. Make sure to visit us at Q30TV.com for all things breakdown and more. Also check us out on the Q30 app to make sure you never miss a show. Also, make sure to check us out on our social media at Q30 Sports. From Aiden, Matt, myself, and everyone behind the scenes, have a wonderful night, Quinnipiac. Stay classy.